everyone, I'm Corinne.
And I'm Brandi.
Welcome to A Pot of Tales, the podcast where we read you short stories we made up and now you have to listen to.
Every week we will each present a short story using the same genre, setting, and a challenge item to include. Everything else is up to our own interpretation. And also, welcome to episode 5. Corinne, how was your week?
My week was good. I'm still talking about Halloween because for us it just happened this past Tuesday. I sat outside in the freezing cold for an hour and a half with nothing but a sweater on. Well, I had clothes on, but I didn't have a jacket on. And it was really cold, and I was shivering, but it was really cool seeing all the costumes, so I made myself stay outside.
Did you give out the large candy bars this year?
I did. Yes, and they took all of my candy. I have none left.
That's good, though.
Yeah. I should really stop buying candy for myself anyways, because I've been enjoying candy long before Halloween this year, and I need a break.
I feel that, me too. I ate way too much candy beforehand, but I had to work on Halloween, so I didn't get to enjoy it, really.
I worked too, but she let me leave early so that way I could give out the candy, because she knows that meant a lot to me. So I got to leave early.
That's nice. We got to dress up at work, and I was like a fairy princess thing. Yeah.
Oh, so you did dress up. You told me you didn't.
Well, there was this lady who brought like a box of costumes to work. So I didn't get to like really dress up in what I was originally going to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of nice that they brought costumes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was your week?
It was fine. Yesterday we went to Salem because we missed Halloween because I had to work. So we just went to Salem instead.
Did you do anything spooky while you were there?
No, not really. We just really walked around the shops while we were there, and we went and saw the witch trial thing. It was telling us about it. That's what it was.
Oh, did they do the reenactments and stuff like that?
Not really. It was the animatronics.
What? That's
Yeah.
even scarier.
Well, it wasn't like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It just was an animated like storytelling, and then all it did was flashlights on scenes. But it wasn't like I don't know. It was weird.
Okay. I was just wondering because a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, they do listeners' episodes, and they had someone write in that their family brought them to Salem when they were like 12 or 13 years old or something. And then they were from Connecticut, but these people were descendants of the person that established Salem, like the town.
Mm.
So they liked coming to Salem around Halloween, and then they would take pictures in front of the founding person's statue and stuff like that. But they went to the reenactments of the witch trials, and this person that was narrating was like only 12 or 13 years old or something. So when her mom, like, I guess they would pick people out of the audience to participate in the trials, and then they would like pretend to be like the witch on trial or something.
Mm.
And this person's mom was getting so into it. She was like screaming at them and like pretending like she was actually being charged with being a witch.
Oh my
And
god.
she was screaming at them that they had the wrong person, and she was like she made the trial so dramatic that it actually like lasted hours, and the person that was sitting there with their mom on trial was wicked embarrassed and like just wanted to leave, but they were stuck there because they were there with their family and they were only a teenager. So they were like, "This is the most embarrassing thing my mom has ever done, is that make the witch trials super dramatic," and was getting super into it. And all the actors thanked the mom afterwards for getting so into it.
That's kind of funny though. I would have enjoyed that. But it wasn't anything like that. It was just an animated voice behind it.
I can imagine Brandon going on trial and getting super into it.
Oh my god. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of listeners' stories, that was a good segue of my own making. Didn't actually think about it at first, but we actually would like to call out to everyone that is listening. If you are someone who enjoys writing short stories, we would love it if you could email them to us to apotoftales@gmail.com. And if you would like, You don't have to. But if you would like us to read them on our podcast, we want to have a listener's episode at the beginning of each month. It doesn't have to be anything specific. You can write in whatever you'd like. If you are inspired by any of our prompts from our past episodes, you are more than welcome to use them. But it can be whatever you want to be. So if you already have some on hand and you want to send them in to us. Again, our email is apodoftales@gmail.com. No spaces or anything, it's just one long word. Yeah, so we would love to share them if you would love to share them with us.
Also, give us like a name tag or something so that we can credit you while we read them.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure. That's what I meant to say too. Like, we're not claiming them as
No.
our own. We want to share your stories and your voice with, well, in our physical voices, I guess. But you know what I mean.
Our categories is dystopian, and it's based out of a church, and our special item is a chicken.
I'm so excited. Just real quick, before I start, what was your first thought when you heard these categories without giving away your story?
I found it really interesting. All I could really think of is like with the chicken, should we make it like haunted or something? I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you went to like a weird place too, because my first thought was a cult.
Yeah, it was kind of like that too, like using the church as like the cult
Yeah,
living area.
yeah,
But
yeah. So just to preface this, because we have a lot of family members that are church people. We grew up in a very religious family, and we have a lot of pastors in the family. This is satire. Okay, I know you guys all have a good sense of humor,
yeah,
anyways, but I just want to preface that. Not that I thought that any of our family members would think anything of it, but just in case anyone is out there and like it gets upset that we immediately went to cult when we heard church
yeah.
and dystopian. Um, just to just to preface that. Okay, so it's my turn to go first. Usually I like to title mine, and I just could not think of one to fit for now. So
Mm,
eventually I'll title it, but right now I couldn't think of anything.
I believe in you.
The year is 2032, and the planet is at boiling temperatures. The Arctics are both melted almost to completion and have caused the oceans to rise dramatically to the point where every coastal city we know and love are flooded to the point where there's no saving them. Millions of people have lost their lives to either a natural disaster or because of the carnage that sudden anarchy inflicted. As soon as the disasters started, once law abiding citizens started losing all sense of their humanity. Fingers were pointed in every direction from both sides of government at who's to blame for the destruction of our world. The left blamed the right for ignoring the scientists' warnings, and the right blamed the left for straying away from religion. But in reality, it's all of our fault. Instead of putting our differences aside to prevent the end of our only habitable planet, we let our egos and greed get in the way and blind us from what's really important. So, just like all of the disaster movies we've seen, society crumbled when the Earth did. Although I have to admit, I thought it would take a lot longer to become a post apocalyptic world than it did. Today, the temperatures have risen enough to make Massachusetts the new Florida. We won't be seeing any more white Christmases, unfortunately, but at least we aren't the real Florida with their unbearable 120 plus degree temperatures. People from down south are migrating north to escape the heat, and it's caused tremendous overpopulation in our physically shrinking cities. With these factors comes an unfortunate amount of cranky attitudes. Everyone is miserable, and most people act like they're the only ones going through a tough time. On the flip side, there are some good areas to live where community has come together to care for one another, so I tend to stick to finding those places. Food has been hard to come by consistently since the animals have been dying from heat exposure and crops aren't growing from the increase of trash and ocean water everywhere. But these communities will ration what they do have to every person to ensure that no one goes hungry. Sometimes it's not much, but at least everyone is getting fed. I live in one of those golden spots, and as lucky as I am, this place doesn't come without its quirks. When I first arrived here, they were still cleaning up and rebuilding after the slew of hurricanes that helped spark the downfall of society. Riots had broken out everywhere after the storms cleared, and people looted and set fires to all of the businesses and even some houses. Thankfully, most towns were deserted by the violent people, and all of the others came out of hiding after they left to rebuild. My original city was still rampaging with violence, so I, along with many others, left to find safety. It was a relief to find this new town. Along my travels, I met a few others who joined me on my journey, including a little golden brown chicken I found wandering around an abandoned gas station that I named Babs.
Aww.
Babs bonded with me quickly as I was sharing food with her, so she followed me to this new town where my small group and I were welcomed with open arms. We found where we belonged and helped rebuild to the best of our abilities. Everyone in the community adored Babs, and she would wander around while we all worked and peck at your ankles if you were eating and not sharing with her. She charmed us all with her careless antics. One of the first buildings we finished repairing was the big white church in the center of town. Many of us who traveled here were living in the church, and Babs loved hopping up on the pulpit whenever she pleased to keep watch. I tried to keep her out of the sanctuary during the church services, but she always evaded my efforts and managed to sneak back in there. The pastor and the congregation didn't seem to mind because she brought amusement during these dark times. She would demand to be lifted and sit on the pulpit as the preacher spoke, and he would oblige.
I love Babs. She's already my favorite.
Well, she's a main character, so you'll be happy about that. She would sit quietly until he started getting a little too loud in his passionate speech. As he was driving home the message, Babs would squawk to add on emphasis. After about a year of Babs and I moving in, the pastor tragically passed away from health complications. Without working hospitals, unfortunately, he wasn't the only member in town this happened to. But there needed to be a replacement, so the church's congregation held a meeting about who should take his place. The debate was lasting hours longer than they thought it would, as they couldn't agree on who was the right person to lead the church through the apocalypse. The pressure was on as these weren't normal times we were living in. Babs sat on her perch at the front of the sanctuary and silently napped, watching as they argued. I walked in to bring her some of my rations and made a joke to her that maybe she should take over since she claimed the pulpit already.
I was just gonna say that, Babs!
The room went quiet after the words left my mouth, and I turned to see them all staring at Babs. My smile faded as I looked from them to Babs in concern. The energy in the room had shifted uncomfortably. God works in mysterious ways, muttered the head deacon. What do you mean? I asked hesitantly. He has already sent us a replacement, knowing we would need her, responded the secretary. My eyes widened as I turned to look at Babs again and noticed that the sunset was shining through the window just right to project a beam of sun rays directly onto the chicken sitting like a loaf on the pulpit. For added dramatic effect, the golden cross on the stage behind her was lit up by the sun and glowing. Babs blinked as she basked in the warmth. Oh no, I mumbled to myself as I put the pieces together. I had heard of other communities losing all sense of reality, but up until now I thought that ours had done a good job at keeping us sane. But all the end of the world talk during this stressful time in history has finally made them crack. The people of the church erupted in a joyous celebration that startled Babs from her sleepy days. She squawked with them as they cheered that they were delivered from the chaos of the world by being sent the simplest of creatures to lead them and remind them that no matter how small or insignificant they felt, God has not forgotten about them.
Oh my god.
Before I knew it, Babs wasn't my pet anymore, but belonged to the whole congregation. Every day they would line up to thank Babs with a piece of their food rations and pet her, hoping to stay in her good graces. The insanity grew every day as others in town found out about the blessed chicken and came into the church for the first time to see for themselves. I debated trying to talk to one of the elders about how they've officially gone off the deep end, but it seemed harmless enough at first and seemed to act like a glue to keep everyone together, so I just let it happen. Honestly, I don't think that anything I'd say would even make a difference, for they were really deep in this. Here is when things started to quickly unravel. Every time Babs laid eggs, it became the new communion. If you helped feed her, she'd feed you in return. They would scramble the few eggs she would lay, and everyone got a small piece to have during the ceremony. When she would erupt in a squawking fit, they would start confessing their sins and beg for forgiveness. If she continued squawking after you confessed, you were too far gone and would need to publicly repent by enduring a punishment. These punishments range from being slapped in the face to straight up beatings with an object that fit the crime. People were beaten so badly sometimes that they had to have the town doctor sit in during these sessions. The offerings were increasing from a bite of your rations to at least half. If Babs had enough food and there were still more people in line needing to have their turn, it didn't matter. The leftover food would be wasted and people were starting to starve.
Oh my gosh. This is crazy.
There wasn't much meat in the community to begin with, but the church had told its congregation that the only protein they were allowed to have would be from the eggs that Babs provided, which wasn't nearly enough for a small family to live off of, let alone a growing congregation of 200 plus people. I knew that I needed to do something, but Babs was under constant watch. The deacons of the church had established a strict security detail for Babs where they took turns in shifts, so she was never alone. I hatched an escape plan where I could rescue her and take her with me. See what I did there?
Hatched.
I hope that if she wasn't there anymore, they would recognize the spiral they went down and come back to reality. If her absence doesn't help, then they're already going to get worse anyways. I waited for after dinner when everyone had already made their offerings and had gone home for the day. Security was lowered to the oldest member of the church, Jack, whose bladder gave no mercy for him. He was consistently leaving his post to use the bathroom, and I was hidden in the balcony pews waiting for my moment. To his credit, Jack tried his best to hold it in as long as he could. He squirmed in discomfort until he finally got up and rushed to the restroom. I knew I didn't have much time, so once the door to the sanctuary shut, I quietly grabbed my bag I had prepared for the journey and snuck down the stairs into the front where Babs sat in a food coma. I gently picked her up and wrapped her into my cardigan so she would remain calm, and to my relief, she cuddled right up to me. I turned and the two of us walked right out the front door to once again go on foot to the next safe town. I'm pleased to say that Babs and I found another community to settle in a few days' walk from the one we left. To ensure that history wouldn't repeat itself, I told them of our story and how we escaped. They almost didn't believe me, but Babs had gotten quite plump from all of the offerings, and in this day and age where food was scarce, it was strange to see even animals well fed. As time went on, members of our old town would escape and retell the story. They added that after Babs disappeared, the church went into a frenzy and destroyed itself. Many of the surviving members had come to terms with what had happened, but it certainly had left a scar on them. They spread out to some of the other churches in town that hadn't fallen under Babs's spell, and some decided that if they were to heal, they needed to leave. So when they stumbled upon our new home and saw Babs, many would recognize her and show fear in their eyes. They never stayed too long once they knew she was here. So after visits like that, my new friends now believe the story of how my chicken accidentally started a cult. The end.
That's incredible. Good job, Babs.
Oh, thanks. I know. I love Babs. I made her up, but I feel like I need her now.
Yeah. She reminds me of the chicken in Moana.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that too, but I wanted her to be like a big round, those golden brown ones. I forget what they're
Yeah.
called.
Oh, I don't know.
I feel like I need to make a stuffed animal of her now.
Can I have one?
Yeah. Maybe one day if we do merch, we can make little beanie babies of Babs.
I definitely need a I need a beanie baby of Babs.
And a t-shirt.
Yes.
All hail Babs. Okay, your turn.
Alright. Just like normal, I don't have a title.
That's alright, I forgot to this time, too, so. Or not forgot to, I just couldn't think of one.
Alrighty. It's the year 2064. We live in a gated community. The community is gorgeous. The families were all handpicked by the government. Each of the families has a special gift to offer. My family is the owner of the only church in our community. My father is the pastor. He has many admirers, and he does a lot for our community. He holds fundraisers and food drives. I am the secretary of our church. I make sure everything runs smoothly behind the scenes and work with all the money. I make sure the money is being spent on the church and its needs and donations to the community. We have a huge support system within the community. We are all family. If someone is sick, we show up for each other and take care of each other. The Browns family has a carpentry business. They will come to the church and fix anything that is needed, and they are also the community carpenters. When they go to another family, they will receive the services that that family provides as payments. The Smiths own a farm. They provide most of the homegrown vegetables for the community. They have horses and cows, and the cows provide the milk and the chickens provide the eggs. The Johnsons make the clothes and the shoes and other household fabrics. The Wilsons contribute to the oil, and they are the operators of the company. They control when and where it gets used. The miners are the miners of the community.
I love the creativity in their names.
Thank you. Each family contributes to each other in the community. If one is broken, so is the community. We operate like a well-oiled machine. It's a Sunday afternoon, and my father is preaching like he always does. And everyone is here from the town. Each Sunday, the town shuts down its businesses to have a day of worship. We have a feast and continue with the worship. The children laugh and play, and as well as learning in Sunday school. No one has ever been forced to believe what the church teaches, but they always do anyways. We have a strong foundation in faith and community. It's perfect in every way. There have been very few times over the years where a family has not participated. But they've also participated in activities that were against community guidelines. They were also selling illegal contraband and were not fulfilling their part in the town. So at that point, they would be kicked out. A couple days later. It was a gloomy Tuesday afternoon. Everyone was out doing their daily chores and the children were playing. It looked like a normal day. Unfortunately, there was an eerie feeling in the air. Everyone felt it, but decided to go about their day anyways. I went to the farm to help Mr. Smith. Mrs. Smith hasn't been doing well as of late, so I've been trying to pick up some of her chores around the farm. I was in the barn taking care of the horses. The smell was terrible, but there was something peaceful about hanging out with the horses and thinking how lucky I was to be able to do all these things for others, and I have the capabilities to do so. I was going about my business, throwing some hay in the barns and feeding the chickens, singing a little song. Then all of a sudden, our emergency alarm went off. I freeze. Everything in my body runs cold. I remember learning about this alarm in school, but it has never gone off in my lifetime or my father's lifetime. When this alarm goes off, that means someone has taken over the city, and it's usually an overthrow of the government or someone is trying to start a war.
A mutiny.
Yes. I start booking it over to the church where my father is all the time. Most of the people are already there. Our church is also considered a safe house. In any type of emergency, people are welcome to stay. I walk into the fellowship hall and see that there are soldiers lining the walls with blank expressions on their faces. I run up and hug my father. He also has a solemn look. Father, what's going on? What happened? He didn't answer. He just ushered me into another room. He says, "Go home and pack 2 bags for you and I. We are going to be staying here until further notice. Don't let anyone stop you. Don't talk to anyone except to tell them to get to the church as quickly as possible."
I'm getting some Silent Hill vibes here.
Dun, dun. I've never seen it.
Oh my gosh. That was one of the first horror movies me and Taylor used to watch at sleepovers, and it scared the crap out of us. But there was like a loud siren that would like echo through the town when it got dark. And then all the monsters would come out and try to kill you. So you had to get to the church for safety because it was the only place that they couldn't get into.
Oh, I didn't know that. I never watched that movie.
Yeah, it still gives me nightmares to this day.
Oh no. I started to panic a little bit, but I know I have to stay strong and do as my father tells me. He has never steered me wrong before. I make my way over to the house. First, I go to my father's room. I grab a duffel bag and grab 3 of his nicest suits and ties, the rest of his regular clothes. I grab some small things like a toothbrush and hairbrush, and then I go to my room and grab some clothes and small necessities. My mind is going 1,000 miles a minute, and I'm anxious. But I know that I have to trust whatever process that's going to happen. I know my dad has planned. He always does. I started to walk back over to the church. Now there are more soldiers, and there is a large black truck with security around it. I see if I can get closer, but security starts to walk towards me, so I quickly change my path. I walk up to the church doors. There is a woman taking names. I never seen her before. She doesn't live here. She must be with them. I stare up at her and she says with a monotone voice, "Name, date of birth, who's your caretaker?" I say, "My name is Hannah Hayward. I was born May 6, 2049. My caretaker is my father, Scott Hayward, the pastor of the church that we are standing in now." She then takes a stamp and marks my arm. She says, "Do not wash this off. We need to be able to identify you later." The stamps are numbered. I am number 2425. There's only about 5,000 people who live here. She directs me down a hallway where everyone that has checked in is put in the sanctuary. Everyone is filed into the pews in order. My father is standing at the pulpit, and there is a man standing next to him who is wearing an all-black suit. He's very tall and muscular. He has military bars on his suit. There are two other soldiers, one standing on the left of the man, and the other standing on the right of my father. It is extremely quiet in the room. No one knows what to think or say, so we just stay silent. The only thing going are my thoughts. I try to control my breathing. We wait here for a couple of hours while we wait for the rest of the community to file in. Finally, around 5:30 p.m., everyone has been checked in and seated. My father starts to speak. On this day, September 24th, 2064, we have been visited by our neighboring states. As we know, we have been independent from the rest of the country for the last 25 years. We have been self-sufficient in our own currency, supplies, and food, but right now they are in need of our services. We as a community know how to survive and build from the ground up. As of right now, the rest of the country is being taken over by our neighboring countries. There is a war going on around the world. How have we not heard of this beforehand? I'm not completely sure, but right now we are being called to help. We have special skills that can benefit everyone. We need to train and be ready to step up in this time of crisis. We have always been the ones to step up in our time of crisis, and I believe in every single one of us that we can do this and serve our country. We need to share our resources with our country and soldiers. We are being called into war. I don't want you guys to panic. Every one of the soldiers are here to protect us. We are being used as a resource base. If all goes right, we shouldn't be touched. I want you to continue on as normal, but remember, we are going to have extra people that are going to need assistance and training. I'm asking you all to do just that.
Would have been nice to have had a warning before invading the town.
I know, right? Murmurs start to fill the sanctuary, but as a collective group, we agree to help. Through the months, we train the soldiers on how to build from nothing, how to raise animals and take care of them and use them for food. We teach them how to take a stick and turn it into a hunting weapon. We take away their weapons and they start from scratch. Every Sunday, they have joined us for our services and they have found some safety and security in doing so. We pray over them every single night. There was one night where I was working for Mr. Smith and taking care of the chickens. I was alone, and one of the soldiers that I've been closely working with for the past couple months comes in. He says, "We have a couple more days left here. I wanted to come in and thank you for welcoming us with open arms. You all have made such a difference, and we will always be grateful for the help that everyone has provided. We couldn't have done this without you all. I have learned more about surviving from nothing than I have in our normal military training. How did you guys decide that you wanted this life?" I say, "Well, I was just born into it. I don't really know anything different. I'm used to this way of life, and I love it so much. I love not having to rely on anyone. The supplies that we need are all here, and everyone has a role. When you are born into this life, you feel like you have a purpose. When you live in a society where you are needed by other people, you feel less lonely. You have others always looking to you in the teamwork that is required to keep everyone sustained. You will never be forgotten. You can't just live life under the radar. You are held accountable. We all have a purpose in this life. Even where you are living, people have a purpose. Some never try to find it, though, because they have so many distractions around them, and they try to fill their life with that distraction, and then when that runs out, they find something else to fill their time. You guys have it good. The soldier sits there in awe, staring at me. He gives me a hug, and we part ways. The next couple of days, the soldiers start to file out of our community. We all say goodbye, and we celebrate the victory that we have faced. A meeting was called at the church. My father says, "You guys have been good and faithful to the people around you. You have fulfilled what we've been working towards our entire lives. I never thought it would happen in my lifetime, but I'm so proud of every single one of you. We are now the #1 place to provide services to our country. We all celebrate and continue to do what we do best. I never forgot this experience. I thank the Lord every day that everyone is safe and we are able to serve."
Oh,
The end.
that was interesting. I was getting, at first I was getting the Silent Hill vibes, and then I was getting, World War III vibes.
Yes.
Who won?
We did. Remember?
Right, sorry. Yeah, I got all caught up thinking about Silent Hill a little too much, my bad. Yeah, that was cool. Good job.
Thanks.
Well, those were fun stories. I always like it when we get some unhinged categories that don't go together.
Yes. It is fun.
So for next week's categories, would you like to do the honors and shake up the coconut?
I would love to.
Yes. Okay, so this is for the genre.
All right. For our genre, you're doing thrillers and suspense.
Ooh, one of my favorites.
The thriller and suspense typically includes cliffhangers, deception, high emotional stakes, and plenty of action, keeping the reader on the edge of their seats. Doesn't need unnecessary details. The protagonist is usually acting to save their own life rather than solve the crime. All right.
Love that. Okay, so now we have to get the setting for our thriller and suspense. You're welcome for the ASMR. ASMR. Okay, whoops. I accidentally peeked. Hang on. I gotta close my eyes. Oh, New York City, Times Square.
That's the setting. The sitting?
The
setting.
Yeah, so the setting for our thriller and suspense short story next week
All right.
is going to be in New York City, Times Square. And now for our challenge.
I'm going to dig deep in here. Our challenge item is...
Is it drums?
I think so, yeah.
You wrote that.
That was bad.
The U looks like an A. It looks like it says drams.
So it must be drums.
Okay.
That should be interesting.
That could work, actually. Yeah. Get some, spooky bongos in there or something.
Spooky bongos.
Yeah. All right, well, that wraps it up for this week. Thank you all for listening. And again, don't forget to send in your own short stories if you have any. And they could be your own original ideas, or you can use some of our ideas. Send them to apotofTales@gmail.com, and we will do a listener's episode next month.
Also, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Spotify.
Yes, please. We definitely need those follows, so that way more people can find our podcast and listen to our shenanigans.
And we also have a Facebook page and an Instagram, which is A Pot of Tales.
Yes, nice and simple.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thanks for listening, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye!